Welcome, everyone. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we have a mission to wake the world up to what's possible, one brave word at a time. And here today to help me with that mission are some of the most amazing authors of a new book that we have coming out. This one is called Bytes of Light, Evolving Leadership for the Spiritual Entrepreneur. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna love this topic today. So before I introduce these beautiful authors to you, let me please just say a ginormous thank you to Angel and Seth Rohrer, who are the lead authors of this beautiful book, Bytes of Light. They brought together a stellar author cast for you who are going to share stories and their strategies and practices and medicine for what they're doing in the world in terms of being a spiritual entrepreneur. Angel and Seth, I love you guys. I'm so grateful to you for leading this and for having this big ass vision and mission to really put this kind of information into the world, how we're going to change leadership. This is world-changing stuff, y'all, not small potatoes to me. And when you hear the authors talk about their stories and what they've been up to, you're going to feel it. I have Bradford W. Tilden with me. He's a best-selling author, composer, master sound healer, and universal white time healing practitioner and teacher. Dustin Kaiser is the co-founder of Buckaroo Buddha Holistic Healing, offering Bowen therapy, breathwork, and shamanic energy work to rule America. I love that, Dustin. Grace Solaris is a multi-dimensional healer, spiritual coach, and divine conduit. And Christina Dubois has a background in health science and is a certified holistic nutrition consultant. You guys, I can't wait to introduce these authors to you. Bradford, you're going to start out the party today. Tell me about your amazing chapter.
All right, Laura, thanks for having me. It's good to be here. My chapter is chapter 8. It is called The Secret of Humming, Harnessing the Power of Your Voice for Personal Transformation. And it's basically about my journey of awakening to the reality that my voice, I've been cultivating it as a personal healing tool my entire life, largely unconsciously or instinctively, and then that transition to that awakening to the awareness that it has power to heal not only myself but others, and so it ultimately arrives at that and then provide some tools for people to start exploring their own voice for their own transformation. So
I loved your chapter, and I don't often get to tell you authors these things maybe until I meet you for an interview. But Bradford, you need to know that I am vocalizing in the form of humming, singing, and chanting way more because of you.
Yes.
Yes, I really am. And I really had to smile. What I want to ask you about this is because, before that, I mean, if I'm alone in my house, fine. But like if I've got roommates or people who are sleeping in the bedroom over there, or maybe they're awake and they can hear, like, how do I get over that? I'm going to do it anyway. And what would you suggest? Because this is a powerful modality. Yeah.
I 100% understand the question. I tell my students, I challenge them to be walking along the street, and if they see someone coming along, if they're humming or even whistling, people seem to do that, and it's socially acceptable to whistle, but for some whatever reason, but humming or singing, and the other person's coming along, and they just stop. And then as the person passes and there's a certain amount of distance between them, then they start humming again. And I invite them to go into that space of why. What is it that are you afraid to show your light? Are you afraid to show your joy? So there's a lot of medicine in going into that space of discomfort. When you have roommates, you live with them, they know you. Oh, it's just her, she's eccentric, of course. So yeah, it's wonderful because it allows it, just using your own voice, which is a God-given gift. There's a capacity to embrace your power every moment when you choose to express yourself and your authenticity in a room with other people. So
Well, no doubt it always gets a smile, no matter if I'm in my house or outside of my house. So what I feel is the vibration inside of my body. The different sounds have different places in me where I feel it. And I'm just doing this baby step version of describing what this is. But what I want you to help the listeners with is, why is this such a powerful modality? What's the physiology? Can you give me a brief one on
Brief.
that?
Yes. Well, sound travels. It's an energy wave that travels through molecular compression. I don't want to get too technical, but it's the physical matter that is the conductor of sound. And water is the best conductor. Wood is a great conductor. Of course, the human body is a conductor, and everything has a frequency that vibrates. And so when you can create a sound that matches the frequency of something, let's say your heart, your physical heart even, you can vibrate your heart and give it some energy, some nutrients. The sound actually raises the energy level of the cells, because the cells are vibrating, because the sound is working at the molecular level. And the voice has this amazing ability to calibrate itself to the infinite frequencies between the standard steps or notes on the scale, so to speak, that can get really specific when you align your intuition and allow yourself to express the sound that your body wants to bring itself back in balance.
I like that explanation. You guys are going to love reading Bradford's chapter, and hopefully you'll start to get a little more curious and interested, or maybe even addicted like I am to the feeling of trying some of these things. Bradford, thank you so much for
You're
being here
welcome.
today.
Thank you, Laura.
Dustin, you're next. Tell us about your chapter.
Thanks, Laura. My chapter is chapter 16, and it's just kind of a short little story of, I guess, how all this came to be. This was something new for me, so it all came out in like this weird poetic thing. And it's just a little bit about my journey through life in learning how to walk in my medicine every day.
Let me just say about that real quick that
Yeah,
I've enjoyed the way that you're expressing through poetry, because I'm a poet as well. I'm a fellow poet. And when someone is challenged, like all of you were, to write their story for a book, like other people are actually going to read beyond your mom and your BFF, right? Like you're like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm going to write something that maybe more than them will read. Not very many people are vulnerable enough to try to even put that into in poetry form, like, right, to express. And so I just wanted to tell you, I very much appreciated reading, and I had a smile on my face as I was moving through some of that very poetic stuff. But you could have chosen to write any particular way you wanted, and I wonder about that process. Yeah, so what else do you want to tell us about why you chose to write about that?
I feel that there's so many people that go through life, and this, whatever you want to, awakenings, the thing you want to call it, and the battle with depression and anxiety and real life shit. My story was just kind of how I battled through all of that, and finally surrendered to my own heart, finally surrendered to myself, and accepted my medicine. I knew why I was here. I know my calling in life, but I had to wade through a whole lot of shit before I got to where I could actually open my heart and accept it myself, and meet that ego. I came from a very rural ranching lifestyle. I was a cowboy, for those that don't know, day working cowboy. So sometimes this type of work is very, I don't know the word I want to use, taboo, weird, I don't know, whatever they want to call it. So it took a lot for me to really dive into this and say, this is who I am, and I'm here to help others ride through their own souls and their own problems in life.
Well, tell our viewers what that work is. So what kind of work are you doing? I appreciate all of you. For many people on these interviews and in these books come out with their spiritual gifts. Like they haven't talked about it. They haven't been able to tell their friends and family that they do this, whatever this is, right? So, how would you put it in words? And this community gets it, but I want the world to get it.
So I guess the medicine I call upon every day is shamanic energy work. It's tapping into nature and my creators, and it's really unlocking helping people unlock their true medicine, find their medicine, continue to tear off their band-aids to heal themselves, to really show them that they have their own medicine to heal. It's all within themselves. And so I guess that's kind of my deal is I really enjoy walking with people and helping them take that first leap into really believing in themselves and start their own healing journey, whether it's angel cards or crystals, whatever their calling may be. It seems to be that I've been kind of that door to open that. Here, look into this, try this, look into things like that, if that makes sense.
It does. We've got Dustin, our shamanic cowboy, y'all. I think that is super awesome. Dustin, thank you so much for being here today. More from both of our dudes in just a couple of minutes, you guys. So, Christina, tell us about your amazing chapter.
Okay, thank you. I wrote chapter 13, which is called From Flight to Fight, Transmuting Trauma into Strength. And so my story is that I was in a marriage that was dysfunctional, and I talk about giving up my power in that marriage. And I hope to inspire other young women to reclaim their power. So my journey is, it took quite a while for me to realize the situation I was in and to make a change. And so in my chapter, I talk about how I decided to make a change and my journey to wellness. I think because when we give up our power, we give up a lot more than that. We also give up our health, spiritually, physically, all of it. And when I realized that I was headed down a path that wasn't healthy, I decided to change. In the last few years, so my journey has been physical, but it's also been mental and spiritual as I found a place and a way that I could do that. And that's going to be different for everybody, but I would encourage people to find something that works for them. And part of that for me was also going back to school and studying nutrition, because that's a piece of it as well.
You all are helping people understand what's possible from here to there, right? And I think sometimes we can't see that possibility, but I'm going to pause on part of our power is our health. I am with you in this piece of the game, had to kind of reclaim some physical health so that I could feel, kind of call back my power. What else do you want to say about that? Like, what's important about that to you?
I think that, yeah, with physical health, especially as we age, we have all of these accumulated stresses from our life, all of these traumas, which add to that stress. So it's really about finding a place where you can bring those cortisol levels back down, where we can learn to heal when we're constantly in that fight or flight space, we're constantly in a trauma space. It has those negative effects on our body. So it's being able to center to ground, to realize where you are and move forward from there before you can actually start to physically heal. So I think it starts within you first.
Yeah, this is so important. I want people to understand, mostly for a sense of hope. You all can come back from that place physiologically, mentally, emotionally, energetically. So, Christina, you do a lot with nutrition. What's one thing you want people to know about maybe that part of the journey?
I think it's about being very mindful about what we put into our body. It's coming back to what is natural and what's whole. And, just like we want to, spiritually as well, we're talking about, the energy we bring in, and that food is our energy as well. So I don't want to use the word clean because I think everybody overuses it, but coming back to what's really natural and what can nourish you, and the body responds to that. So, I mean, it's
Nourish.
going to be different for everybody, and it
Yeah.
depends on what's going on in your life and what issues have come up because of all of your traumas and what you've been dealing with.
Yeah, and that word nourish has a feel to it to me. Like, I love that word. And you're right, then it's going to feel differently to everyone what that means to nourish yourself, with what you put in your mouth, what you breathe, the people that you hang out with, everything, right? All the
Yeah.
parts of your environment.
Yeah. And awareness. I think awareness is the first thing, and being honest with yourself. Because I mean, when we all fall into those spaces and all of a sudden we're stressed and something's coming up, we want to fall back into those unhealthy patterns. So just being aware of it is I think the first step.
Yes, thank you, Christina. Thank you for being here. Awareness is everything. You all are dropping golden nuggets of awareness today throughout the book. That's what this is. We get the next moment of awareness. Our entire life could change in that moment. That's how big of a deal this is to me. Grace, let's hear about your amazing chapter.
So my chapter is chapter 11. It's the plea of the inner warriors to return to the sacred heart and from self-sabotage into self-mastery. So I write very much about the healing path that I have been on. I was very early on the spiritual path, very much on the spiritual path, seeking for truth, for wisdom, for God within. So a very spiritual path very early on. And I actually knew it already from teenager. I had this inner drive, this inner force that drove me onwards to seek. But I knew somehow I had to go through some stuff before I could start that. And I had a lot of trauma through my childhood. And so I started to search for healing modalities and so on very early. And I discovered in particular how important it is, to work with your inner child, because you are literally molded from early on, and, from the environment, the energetical environment you live in, all the things that are projected on you that, maybe your parents have told you things on and on and on, and it becomes a program that is running inside your mind, and eventually you take them over as reality. Yes, though it might be nothing to do with who you truly are, but it's sort of the way you behave, the way you feel, the way you encounter the world. And so it's very much really about becoming aware of those imprints and programs, all the projections that were sort of, I always see like sort of post-it notes, all these things, that are put on you about, how you're supposed to be, or, maybe what you lack, all these things that are put onto you by others, and eventually you start to run that program. So the thing is, it's very much about being aware of those programs, identifying them, and so to say, deprogram yourself. And so I also speak about how important it is to be in the sacred heart, because we tend to be very much in the mind, because when we've gone through trauma, whether, it's emotional, mental, or even physical pain, we sort of slip out of the body without even being aware of it. And it's like when you are outside of your body, when you're not grounded, you get much more vulnerable. But we do that subconsciously to sort of escape the pain. Yeah. So we feel like it's not that we're doing it on purpose, but it's something that just happens with fight and flight, and we're just out of the body, and so we disconnect. Yeah, we disconnect from our heart, and in our sacred heart, and that's also where our inner child resides. And that's why the inner child, if it carries a lot of wound, it feels abandoned. Yeah, it feels rejected or abandoned. And so the trauma that it had, it's just like it keeps sitting there, you know. So we really need to turn within to our inner child and to offer this nurturing and allow it to be seen, you know, allow it to be heard. And that's like an ongoing thing. We need to nurture that inner child, because for it to return to the say its innocence, spontaneity, and all that stuff, you know, because the child, you know, before it's wounded, it believes in magic, it believes that everything is possible. And so you can connect to that inner place in you where there is this knowing that you can actually do that. Yeah.
Yeah, big, profound ideas, y'all. Did you let some of that sink in? Grace, thank you so much for being here today. Gosh, I mean, any one of these topics, we could be here all day talking about. These are big, juicy topics, big, sometimes overwhelming ideas about the trauma. But, you know, this book is for entrepreneurs, and it's about leadership. But as you guys can tell, we're doing that differently, aren't we? We're talking about different kinds of ways to do that. Dustin, I'm going to start with you for this next question. What does evolving leadership even mean to you? What does that look like to you?
To me, it's continuing to better ourselves so we can lead others on their journey. You know, for me, like the whole I'm out to help rural America is I'm bringing medicine to places and people that don't have access to, you know, yoga every day and meditation classes. I'm here in very small towns, bringing in that medicine, bringing in the things that these new ideas, showing people that it's okay to walk in yourself. So to me, that's what that is showing up your true authentic self and putting that vibration out there for others to learn how to walk in their own medicine.
I love the way that you kicked off that question. Grace, I'm coming right back to you for this one next. What's evolving leadership look like to you?
Yeah, I totally concur with what Dustin said, because that thing about being authentic and real, also that you don't have to be in a certain way to be a leader. The most important thing is to just be yourself, share your medicine. And another thing is really to have the courage to trust whatever comes through you, that, you know, to go center stage, to really be a voice out there, because we all have very, very profound individual gifts and talents, and to just trust in them and don't compare with yourself. Step up, be a leader, go center stage, you know. And you know, many of us, we have had patterns of, you know, maybe not being good enough or being afraid to show up. So it's really, most of all, to show up and you know, use your voice, share your gift, and just trust in that gift, that there are someone out there that needs, you know, that can pick out something from it, you know. Don't yeah, put any restrictions on yourself. And it's very much, when I say leading from your heart, it's also very much where I think, like, when we think about leadership, it's, I mean, it used to be at least very much, you know, a bit of more masculine way, like intellectual or more structured, but more trusting also in our intuition, being in that flow of the moment. Now, like you said, most people would like to have the questions before the interview now, but just say, okay, I just surrender, I trust, I go within, I am in my sacred heart. And as you do so, just allowing whatever needs to come through. And that's being the leader, trusting in that, coming from the heart, and be that voice in the world that you came to be.
Yes, I love that. I love the authenticity answer. Justin, be yourself. I love the trust and trust in your intuition answer. Christina, what do you want to add? Like, what does this mean to you on evolving leadership?
I think it really means that we don't always have to do the things the way they've always been done. I think we need to look at new ways, new ideas, and to be flexible and recognize that every single person out there can be a leader in their own way, and that we can empower people to do that. I think it's also about, instead of being competitive as leadership has always been in the past, instead it's cooperative. So we are working together to achieve the goal.
Oh my gosh, and the energy and the result will be so much bigger for that collaboration, right?
Yeah.
You know that that is part of my mission, and it's real and big because of cooperative and collaborative efforts. I love that, Christina. Bradford, it's hard to go last on these questions, but I know you have something to add to this. What else do you want to say?
Yeah, well, true leaders they're not interested in followers. And what we are interested in is other leaders. We want, like Christina said, we instill that confidence. I believe leaders, I lead by example, and one of my taglines is inspire, right? Educate, inspire, activate. And in doing so, we're empowering people, and the evolving aspect is to remind us that we're all growing and we're all expanding and we're all changing, and to always have an open mind that balances that open heart. And when you see someone needing something new, perhaps an enlightened or evolving leader would develop or explore that same skill set to learn more themselves, to be a more effective leader for the other. So in my opinion, it's a very fluid, it's very dynamic, evolving energy as of a true leader, just to be there to address the needs of the others, to empower them to be individual and sovereign in their own leadership of their life. So.
And I love listening to all of your voices describing the answer to this same question. Like, this is part of the mission of these books. And so I'll thank all of you for not only for just saying yes to the project, but for taking on that challenge I gave you to write your unique story and then bring your medicine into the book so that our readers could have a practical experience with it. You all did that so brilliantly, and you all just made a perfect example of why I need to hear the answer to that question from everybody, from all the voices, from all of the ways that we can talk about what this means, evolving leadership, right? Christina, here's the next one. So, and this got talked about a little bit already. I want to take this a notch further. But for me, when I think about being a spiritual entrepreneur, it's been about honing my skill of listening to my heart and making decisions. Grace called it the sacred heart, right? From that place, but it's a feeling place in my body. What has this meant to you, Christina? The being a spiritual entrepreneur, what's it look like for you?
For me, it is actually still evolving, and I think
Always,
it always
right?
will be.
Yeah.
So I think it's having a really open mind and realizing that even our spirituality can change. I don't really want to go into my story specifically, but in my story, my spirituality was constricted. It was kind of stopped. And so after I left my marriage, I had to rediscover what that was going to look like. So exploring different avenues and not being afraid to explore different avenues of spirituality, and knowing that it's not the same for everybody, and that, some people might find that in a church and someone else might find it in angel cards or crystals, like Dustin said. And there's no right or wrong. It's whatever resonates with you, whatever makes you feel good. And I think for me, it's really important that that people believe in something, and it doesn't really matter what it is, but to have some sort of spiritual system that you can turn to. And I do think that that's a human need.
I love that. Thank you, Christina. Bradford, what about you on this one? Being a spiritual entrepreneur, I think some of you healers must laugh at that question and say to me, "Well, of course. Like, what are you talking?" Right? But what about for somebody who doesn't connect the two? What does this mean to you?
My guide's flooded with responses, and I'm just gonna have to screen and optimize for this setting. Entrepreneurship and spirituality kind of, you don't think that they go hand in hand in this culture of evolution, energetic evolution and conscious evolution. Our individual goal is to self-actualize, and that desire to create something unique and novel, which is the actualized self, is an engine that propels one to be innovative and sort of an entrepreneurial mindset of how does one create a life that supports their authenticity. And I think that in itself is the essence of spiritual entrepreneurship. And so, I mean, for me, I jumped ship. I abandoned the cubicle a long time ago to become the self-actualized person, trusting in the universe, pulling in the powers of manifestation, recognizing that my growth externally is completely dependent on my growth internally. All of these factors are driving forces for me to evolve in my entrepreneurial way of thriving in this particular school called Earth. So that's my nutshell of spiritual entrepreneurship.
I like it. I like it. And, you all have to understand that, I roll with very connected authors who are getting a lot of messages for you all when they're being interviewed. So sometimes it's hard to pick one good one, but I love what you said about leaving the cubicle behind. That gave me a nice little visual. Dustin, how about you? What do you think of in terms of this combo of being a spiritual entrepreneur?
So kind of like what the other two said, or how I look at it, it's kind of like training a horse. There's so many different things that come into our realm, and it's for me, it's taking what works, what vibrates with my heart, what vibrates with my medicine. Whether it's using the tools of and different medicines that come along on your journey, and picking them up and diving into those and being able to produce those to help others, if that makes sense.
I'm going to actually ask all of you a follow-up question as it relates to something a few of you have already talked about. So I love that, Dustin. Thank you. Grace, how about you? What do you want to add to this? Being a spiritual entrepreneur, what does that look like to you?
For me, it's something that's evolving a lot, and I am, through being connected through my heart, it's like also allow oneself to let go, to not necessarily hold on to things having to be in a certain way. It's like internal growth, and then you can share this with the ones you're connected to, with your network.
Being a spiritual entrepreneur, I think you are answering it beautifully, as all of you have. And Grace, I'm actually going to stick with you now and ask this last question to all of you. And this is something that I think almost all of you touched on this. I thought it was so important. It ended up being a whole separate question for everybody. So I kind of want to take this the next level. But I really believe that great leaders challenge others to step up and lead. And so many of you have said that today. So thank you for agreeing with me. We empower people to do this by helping them to connect to their worthiness and their own inner wisdom and power. And you all do this in your very unique, beautiful ways. Grace, what's one last message you have for our listeners today to help them connect to their power?
Yeah, that's really the most important thing, is to be in the heart and do not compare yourself to anyone. That's very important, because each of us are unique. Each of us have unique gifts and talents. And the key for these gifts and talents to sort of reveal themselves, to unfold, is really trusting, because if we slip into the mind and we start to compare ourselves, oh, him or her is doing that, but just refraining from that and just really, show mercy on yourself, and be grateful for your own gifts, and have courage to go out and share your message, your energy. We all carry certain frequencies, alone through our presence, we have a gift to share with someone, which is entirely unique, so, and it's like we all have that different frequency, that different essence, a healing essence, a healing medicine, that, those that resonate with it, they will immediately feel that, so you don't have to actually do something special, you will naturally attract those that are ready to receive your medicine. So it's really about having the courage, going out there, becoming visible, becoming transparent, and share that because it is such a fulfillment, when you can go out and share that medicine and you see that amazing shift that happens in others. And yes, I can also concur about empowering others. This is also a major part of my work, to really saying, you don't, have the courage to trust in yourself, don't judge yourself, trust in yourself. And as you do so, you start to blossom, you start to grow, and those gifts, they will just reach whoever who needs to receive them.
Thank you. Yes, 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 and yes, with that exclamation point. Christina, what are some last words that you want to share to help our viewers really connect back to their power?
I think it comes down to confidence. So if you can help somebody to gain confidence, and that's much easier said than done. I think that one thing that we can do to gain confidence is to step out of your comfort zone. Do something that maybe you wouldn't otherwise do. And I would encourage people to do that, because when you do that, you grow internally, right? Trust your intuition and try something new. And even if it's not successful, I would still applaud the courage to try that, and just always be learning, and yeah, that stepping out of your comfort zone, which is, I'm still practicing.
I think we all are. The best of what life has to offer happens when you dip your toe over in the discomfort zone, you guys. Like, go for it, right? Dip a toe in, and then later you can cannonball. It will be fantastic. Bradford, how about you? What do you want people to know about connecting to that inner wisdom and power?
Well, sticking with the theme of my chapter, your voice, the voice is an expression of your inner connection with yourself, with your core, with your soul. And make a sound. If you're uncomfortable making a sound on your own, look at that and start there. We all judge ourselves, and also distancing oneself from one's power is silencing themselves and closing down the throat chakra. So one way to be self-directed in your reclaiming of your power is to use what you already have, which is this you can't escape your voice. It's always there. And start with a hum. The actual hum, it simulates the nourishing sensation of being back in the womb. And that is a primal healing, a primal nurturing of self-love, is starting with that hum. And then open the voice and vocalize and accept your sound as your own. And that is an act of radical self-acceptance and self-love. When you can accept the sound of your voice, you're on the right path. So that gives you with that, yeah.
Super duper powerful. I get a feel in me about this all the time. I think I just wanted to add for our listeners who maybe haven't tried it or even dabbled in sound healing yet. Like, you've got this beautiful instrument, you can create your own sound healing any moment of the day that you feel like. So it's very accessible, right? It's like one of those things.
And it's free.
And it's free. And
Unless
it's
you
free.
want a coaching session with me.
Oh, there you go.
Anyway.
Yes, I love it. I love it. All right, Dustin, you're going to close out the party today. What do you want to add for everyone? Like, what's the most important thing to you in terms of connecting back into our inner wisdom and power?
For me, it's you're holding yourself sacred. We're all sacred. We all have our medicines, our vibrations. So holding yourself in that sacred medicine and walking in ceremony every day should be a ceremony, because every day we wake up, we're out here putting ourselves out there, making ourselves vulnerable, stepping off that step, dipping our toe in that water to try to help the greater of humanity, to hold space and help raise the vibration of consciousness around the world. And it takes a lot to show up. And so for me, it's holding every day sacred and waking up in ceremony. Every day that I try to be my true authentic self, do it in a ceremonial space.
I love it, Dustin. And what a beautiful way to wrap this up, to hear that particular message. And you guys, we know this is hard some days. And so, you know what's so awesome? I will just say thank you, all of you authors here today. Thank you so much for what you do in the world and for being here to share it with everyone. What is so awesome is that you all are looking at part of this community of generous, amazing, powerful healers who are there for you if you are curious today about something they said, or you want to take the next step with them. So just drop down into our show notes, because I have them hooked up with all of their links there. Please go explore their websites, their sites, their social, and they're ready to answer questions and support you on the next step of your journey. So I hope you all will do that. And the next thing that you can think about is our book launch party, because we're going to have all of the authors of Bytes of Light with us. That's going to be June 24th at noon Eastern, and you're going to find info down below about that. And if you happen to be listening to this interview after that date, well, that means you can hop over to Amazon and grab your copy of this beautiful book. And lastly today, everyone, I want you to remember, your words change the world when you're brave enough to share them. So it is time to be brave. See you next time, everyone.